Hey guys, what I'd like to do for you all today is talk about 3 upgrades I've made to my main recording setup. Here I've got the Elgato HD60 S Plus. This is a USB 3.0 capture card. Here I've got the Elgato 4K60 Pro, which is a PCI Express capture card. And lastly, we've got the 970 Evo Plus. Now this is an upgrade I was thinking about doing for a while, but because I bought this, I kind of did the upgrade at the same time. It kind of pushed me to do it, and I'll explain why later. So here I've got the Elgato HD60 S Plus, and this is something I am familiar with because I bought this when it was first released, and I did an extensive review and tested it for gaming, etc. And my opinion of it remains the same. This is a very capable device. USB 3.0 into your PC or your laptop. It supports recording at 1080p 60 or 4K 30, obviously lower resolutions and frame rates as well. But it can also support 4K 60 pass-through, and it supports HDR. So you could play your game at 4K 60, your Xbox One console or something, and then you can record at the lower resolution, 1080p. So it's a very capable device, but I'm kind of using this like a cam link because this is actually being used right now to record this footage. The original one that I bought is being used to record from my Sony a6500, and my new one is being used to record my overhead camera. So I now have 2 of these for both of my main cameras, and I think this is a better option than some of the other capture cards out there. I think it's a better option than the Elgato Cam Link as well, because one of the main limitations of the Elgato Cam Link is that it doesn't have HDMI out, and this does, which means that I now have the option to not only record at 4K 30 with both of my Sony cameras, but I can also output to different monitors and see exactly what the cameras are outputting. So quite versatile, and also means that if I don't want to use it to capture cameras, I can use it again to capture game footage. But like I said, I have talked about this extensively in the past. Fantastic little capture card. Picked up for only £122 in the Amazon warehouse sale. Next up here, well, I've kind of got 2 things here. With the 960 Pro and the 970 Evo Plus hard drive, and they kind of tie in because of the way that my PC was set up. Now, the 960 Pro is an X4 express card, so most motherboards have an X4, an X8 and an X16, a couple of X1 PCI Express card slots as well, but most people will have an X4, an X8 and an X16, and the graphics card is normally an X16. So in most PCs, you have the X4 or the X8 if you want to expand your PC, if you want to connect to anything. I have a Thunderbolt 3 card in my X4, and previously I had this in my X8. This is an SSD adapter for my PC, and basically this supports 1 NVMe and 2 SATA-based SSDs in the back. And I used this before because basically where my PC is, the graphics cards sit over the SSD, so I use that just to improve performance. The problem is when I took this out today, I had to put the SSD into the other M2 slot, so I made that upgrade, but I also upgraded my main C drive. So this is the C drive that I was using before. This is, if we can get up here, this is the 960 Evo. It's not going to get in focus. Oh, I guess in focus as soon as I move it away. But this is the hard drive that I was using before. The main limitation of this is that it was 256 gigabytes. Performance was still good, but I've upgraded to the 2 terabyte 970 Evo Plus. Now, that should be a simple upgrade because, well, this was a simple upgrade. I took out this card, I put in the Elgato 4K60 Pro. You can get easier than that when it comes to PC upgrades. But this one was a little bit harder because I had to change the hard drive, which was underneath the CPU cooler, which meant that I had to take out my graphics card, then I had to take off my CPU cooler as well, and then I could get in and switch the hard drive. But because I removed the CPU cooler, I then had to clean off all the thermal paste, I had to reapply the thermal paste, and I had to put the fan back on and all that. It wasn't a ton of hassle per se, but the CPU cooler that I've got, it's a great CPU cooler, really quiet, it's fantastic, it supports overheating and all that with the 8700K CPU. But it's an absolute pain to put back on. It's just not easy to, it's just not user friendly for, putting on and off. So yes, that was a pain. But as far as upgrading from 256 to 2 terabytes, it all went well. It all went really well. And not that it shouldn't have. I mean, I cloned the hard drive And that, that all worked well. That was fine. And then I went in and I extended the hard drive, because when you clone a hard drive, you copy the drive, but it's still only 256 gigabytes for your C drive. So I had to extend it so that I had additional storage, and I've done that. So that was all good. And I was glad that it did work though, because whenever you're cloning drives, I always think something's going to go wrong, but yeah, nothing did. So now that I have all that upgraded, I've got the 4K60 Pro and I've got additional storage. To me, this is the biggest upgrade today. Well, obviously the overhead camera does look better now. If you're a subscriber, you probably noticed that this does look better. It's now in 4K instead of 1080p, which is being scaled up. But the biggest thing here is the 4K60 Pro, and this is my gaming laptop. It's just on the desktop just now, but I can show you in a second. Now, the 4K60 Pro obviously gets a lot of accolades, and quite rightly so. This is the Mark II version, supports HDR, and if I scroll down, you can see the card, but I'll scroll down and I'll show you the comparison table, because I want to talk about the main reason that I bought this. Now, this does support 4K 60, it does support 4K 30 and lots of other resolutions. But the main reason that I bought this was the pass-through. And it's something that a lot of people aren't talking about with this. They're not talking about the pass-through. So you can see it here in the comparison table, you've got 1080p at 240, 1440p 144 pass-through. Now, previously, because I had started using my HD60 S Plus for that, for my camera, I was using my older HD60 S for recording games, which, it's upside down, but this is still a capable capture card, but it's kind of looking a little bit long in the tooth. It doesn't support HDR, it doesn't support anything above 1080p. It still does do the job, it's still a great little capture card. But one of the reasons I wanted to upgrade is because when I used this, I was limited to 1080p at 60, but that was limiting what I did with the game. It wasn't just recording that was being limited. I had to limit how I played the game as well. So I'll give you an example using, I'll give you an example using Call of Duty here, and hopefully the fans aren't too loud. So this is Call of Duty Black Ops. Now, previously I had to play the games at 1080p 60. Now that's the limitation of YouTube as far as 60 frames per second. But 60 frames per second on a first-person shooter isn't great. It's just not as fluid. And I normally play my games at 144 frames per second. Now, using this new 4K60 Pro, I can still record at 1080p at 60. But I can now, if I want, I can play up to 240 Hertz and record at 60 frames per second. And it's still going to look fluid, still going to look great. No surprises I download here. But yeah, it's still going to look great. It's still going to look as if I'm playing at 1080p 60, but I'm going to have a more enjoyable experience and I'm going to perform better because, less input lag, etc. So I've switched to my dynamic microphone and I've got my headphones on so that I can listen to the gameplay, and I'm recording with the Elgato 4K60 Pro. Now, the 4K resolution, the 60 frame rates of that 4K resolution, I think that's what's going to grab the headlines, as is HDR. And all of that's great, but I do think pass-through is the biggest selling feature of this device, and it's why this is better than all other Elgato capture devices at this time. It really does make a huge difference to how you actually play the game. Right now, I'm playing this at 120 Hz. I could set up as 144 Hz. I've just set up 120 Hz just now, but I'm playing at 120 Hz. You can see the frame rate at the top there. I'm getting shot already. And I'm playing all of this on a 144 Hz display, so 1440p, 144 Hz display, but I'm playing at 120 Hz. And I can play at that high frame rate and that high refresh rate, and there's no problems. Now, contrast to how I had this set up before with the Elgato HD60 S, I had to play at 1080p 60, but I also had to play at 60 Hz. 60 Hz meant that, well, right away for a game like this, you were dying a lot because, I'm flying over the place here, you were dying a lot because you were playing at, the lower frame rate, the lower refresh rate, and not only that, I was getting lots of tearing because I was, playing at 60 Hz on a 144 Hz display. So I was getting tearing where the image was kind of tearing in two. It's a common problem with first-person shooters. And that made it very unenjoyable. So I had to enable VSync. So not only was I slowed down with the lower frame rate, the lower refresh rate, VSync increased input lag even more. So it was just a horrible experience. You know, a lot of the time you'd look at someone, you'd look at a bot or anyone, and you would die right away because of the input lag. I'm not getting that. And that's the biggest thing for me with this card. I can play this at any resolution and frame rate that I really want to. So it's certainly what my graphics cards and my laptop is capable of. So I can play games at 1080p up to 244 Hz. I can play 1440p 144 Hz, or I can do 4K at 60 if I want. You know, maybe there's a platform or something, I just want the better quality image. But right now I'm playing 1440p 120 Hz, but the frame rate's higher, and I'm recording all of this at 4K at 30. You know, this is not a high frame rate that I've got right now. I haven't set this up to record at 60 frames per second. This is an extremely low frame rate, but I can still play this and enjoy the game at the higher frame rate. It's just fantastic what this allows you to do. So I do need to spend more time with it and learn what I like and what I don't like, but I've spent about an hour or two today just playing around with it, and in comparison to the older Elgato HD60 S, it's night and day, simply from a gameplay point of view. I mean, we could talk all day about colours and things like that, but you still have to enjoy the game, and I really wasn't enjoying it before because I was limiting the frame rate and the refresh rate that I was using. It's just fantastic. These bots are really bad, aren't they? So my Mazewell USB capture cards have served me well over the years, as has my Elgato HD60 S. I've recorded so much footage with this over the years. I've streamed so many games, but I'm really happy with these upgrades. The Elgato HD60 S Plus is being used for this camera and my overhead camera, and I do think both cameras look better now that I'm recording in 4K, but I'm really happy with the 4K60 Pro. It's a fantastic little capture card. It actually frees up a little bit of USB bandwidth for me as well, because you've only got so much bandwidth that you've got through your motherboard. But the big thing here is not the resolution, it's not even HDR. For me, the big thing is pass-through. I'm not going to limit myself now. I don't have to restrict myself to playing games at 60 frames per second, 60 Hz. I can now utilize my 144 Hz gaming display. I can still play at 1440p and scale the signal down or up like I did in this video. So moving forward, I'll probably be playing games at 144 Hz, 1440p, but I'll stream at 1080p. And it's hard to grumble for £102. I think I've done really well from the Amazon warehouse sale. So many thanks for watching, guys. I'm always looking to upgrade my setup. I think this has been a significant upgrade, but I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've got any questions, please do leave a comment below and I'll do my best to answer them. But until next time, take care.